Alright, jokes aside, I've spared the time to watch the new Addams Family movie and it was uniquely weird. I expect something like the Addams Family to include all sorts of gags to throw out the rest of the film's characters, but despite the effort put into it, I was not interested in a lot of the film. It also wasn't the worst film that I've ever seen, but not the greatest. I was somewhere in the middle for the film's mediocre story as well as some of the performances that the characters have given. Chloe Grace More's performance of Wednesday was fine, and Nick Kroll's performance as Uncle Fester was something I didn't expect from the creator behind Big Mouth. The animation quality for this movie wasn't the best, especially coming from the studio that produced Sausage Party, but I would expect that from a dark comedy like Addams Family. There were times that the original songs made for the film weren't great, but most of the time those songs would be just as good as songs in films like DreamWorks' Trolls and Disney's Frozen. Now before I go into spoiler territory, I highly recommend you go to the timestamps so that if you do go see this mediocre film, you get to hear all the bad things I have to say about it. This is your only word before I get into spoiler talk. 3, 2, 1. Now let's talk about the aspects of the film that I didn't like, which was a good amount. I mentioned that some of the songs in this film didn't work. Especially didn't work when the Addams Family visits the town of Annihilation, before Fester scares off the crowd dancing to the first song. The animation quality I mentioned wasn't the best, especially because the character design reminded me of another MGM film, Igor. If the production team had improved on the final design of the characters, this would have made the film more appealing, but for the Addams Family, you don't need to change what they look like. The story I mentioned is mediocre at best. The idea that the town presents all of the other Addams Family as one big family is a bit ridiculous, but with the comedic tone of the film, I can pretty much ignore that in a glim. What also struck me was the idea to not modernize the film completely for its other characters. Having to use a catapult to destroy the Addams home is too simple. Isn't it a time when bulldozers and heavy cranes can be used to knock down houses? What kind of a movie tries to be a simpleton when you can use such modern equipment? Now let's go on to what worked out with this film. The score was surprisingly well done and fits with most of the scenes. When the family is gathered around and Pugsley tries to demonstrate his willpower, the music works well for that scene. I thought that Allison Janney's performance as the antagonist was over the top, but it was still well worth watching. It's a shame that this film didn't give much potential, considering that the original material is an underrated classic. Check this film out if you really like snapping your fingers so much, and my final score for this film was a 59 on the lit meter.